Okay, so first lesson, 1.1, evaluating expressions. Some terminology. First, a variable. A variable is a letter used to represent a number or set of numbers. So the most common variable we use in mathematics is x. You see it all the time. We use it all the time, and I don't know why, but it's just what we use. It's kind of how it started. And mathematicians love order. So after X, they started with Y, and then they went to Z, which I cross because I don't write a cursive 2, so my Z's look like 2's. We also will use A and B. I try to do a cursive B because sometimes it looks like a 6. I think C is a terrible variable, but we'll use that a lot too. But variables can be anything. It doesn't have to be a letter. It could actually be some kind of symbol. So, maybe you want to use this guy, smiley face. Or, some people like to use like a flower, we can have some fun with it. Put little petals in. It's exciting, right? It's pretty. Maybe not the best. I think I do better on the whiteboard than I do with the computer. Good? Flower. My personal favorite is house. I like talking about house as a variable. So I draw a little house. And I just go that far. I don't go with the chimney and doors and windows, but house. And then a lot of times these variables will have a certain value. So, you'll see things like x equals 6. And then that just means anywhere where you see an x in an expression, you can say 6 instead of x. Speaking of algebraic expressions, let's take a look at what an algebraic expression is. An algebraic expression is a mathematical expression with variables. So, a lot of times in math we're asked to evaluate an algebraic expression. So, evaluate 7x when x equals 3. Now, I like to do this problem in what seems like a complicated way at first, and I wouldn't say complicated, but maybe tedious, because as we get into more complicated expressions, I think this way will help. So start by rewriting the mathematical expression, 7x, but wherever you see an x, put an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis. Now what I like to do is I like to take my value of x, which in this case is 3, and I take that and I write it into the parenthesis. Now I can evaluate the expression. To evaluate the expression, you simply do the math that's left in the expression after you've substituted in the value of x. In this case, in between 7 and the parentheses is a multiplication sign. Hopefully you remember that from your previous study of algebra. So what I do here is I take just 7 times 3. Let me just get my pen ready. So 7 times 3 is, you probably said it by now, 21. So 21, and then I circle that final answer. Some more review terms, I hope, while we have this algebraic expression 7x with us. The 7 in this case has a special name. It's called the coefficient. So when you have an algebraic expression, there's usually some type of variable, in this case x, and this number right here, this 7, is called the coefficient of x. Fancy word for number in front of. The coefficient of x. The number in front of x. And that's a term you're going to hear me say a lot in these videos and when we're working in class. So you need to just recognize what it means. Let's try another example. Evaluate p minus 1/2 when p equals 3/4. So again, I like to start by rewriting the expression, but wherever I see a variable, I'm going to put an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis, p minus 1/2. Now I'm going to take that value of p, 3/4, and I'm just going to write it in to the parenthesis. And I'm not going to write that arrow every time. I'm just doing that to show you what we're doing. When you evaluate an expression, an algebraic expression, you know the value of the variable you're substituting in. And I like using parentheses to just, again, keep track of some mathematical things that might happen. So now we just keep going. We work down in a vertical fashion. What is 3/4 minus 1/2? How do you subtract fractions? If we take a look at 3/4 minus 1/2 on a new screen, we can remind ourselves that 3/4 minus 1/2, to add and subtract fractions, we need to get a common denominator. So remember, the denominator is the number on the bottom. In this case, that's the 4 and the 2. And we ask ourselves, what is the lowest common multiple of 4 and 2? You may have heard that before. Lowest common multiple, the smallest number that both 4 and 2 go into evenly. So multiples are 2, 4, 6, 8 for 2, and multiples for 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16. And you may have heard it when I said it, but the lowest common multiple, the smallest number that both 4 and 2 go into, is 4. So we don't have to do anything with 3/4 because 4 is the lowest common denominator between 4 and 2. So right under 3/4, I'm just going to write 3/4. But I have to do a little work to make 1/2 have the same denominator as 3/4. Again, I'm going slow as an effort to really kind of emphasize some things that you may have forgotten over the summer or just need to be reminded of. So we take our fraction 1/2 and we ask ourselves, what do I need to do to make this 2 look like a 4? You've probably said it out loud. You need to multiply by 2. You can't multiply a fraction by 2 on the bottom without also multiplying by 2 on top. And the reason for that is if you look at 2 over 2, you're really just multiplying by 1. So if you look right there, 2 divided by 2 is 1. And so to multiply a fraction by 2 over 2 is really to just multiply it by 1. When you multiply fractions, you multiply across. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And now what we've done is we've changed the way 1/2 looks. We've changed it to look like 2 over 4. Now we have this common denominator, and we can finish evaluating the expression by taking what is 3 minus 2, and that is 1. When you add and subtract fractions, remember the denominator does not change, stays the same, and now we have our final answer of 1/4. Okay, let's look at our final example. This one has an exponent, and it's an algebraic expression that we're going to evaluate. Evaluate x cubed when x equals 4. Start with an open and closed parenthesis. That's for x. The exponent is out here. Then I substitute 4 in for x, and I have 4 cubed. A little review of exponents. We call the number here the base, That's the base of the exponent, and we call the 3 the exponent. It's also, the whole thing is called a power, or sometimes we say the power of 3. So you hear exponent and power interchanged a lot. Really, 4 is the base, and exponent power talking about the number up here. We use exponents to denote repeated multiplication. 4 to the third power, or 4 cubed, or 4 raised to the third power, means 4 times itself 3 times. 4 times 4 times 4. That's what 4 cubed means. X cubed means x times x times x. And again, review, beginning of the year, making sure we remember some mathematical things. So 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Some people will write that in between step. I don't know if you have to. If you have to, please do. If you don't feel like you need to and you want to just jump to 64, that's okay too. This was the very first video I've ever made, so thank you to my Algebra 1 class at Annie Wright School. You're the best students ever. Okay, thanks for watching, and tomorrow make sure you have your textbook because we will be practicing, simplifying, and evaluating expressions. Have a good night.